We are good to go.
Okay. We'd like to welcome everybody to the March 20th, 2024 Planning Commission meeting in this beautiful new building. So welcome everyone. Great work by the city. It's nice to have this new resource. Great work, John. We will have an invocation or a thought by Commissioner Green and the Pledge of Allegiance by Commissioner Bailey.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm going to offer a thought today. Speaking of this new building, I think it's remarkable that the city was able to accomplish such an amazing building feat that really sets them up for the future. I know often it's hard for us to understand when we see the price tags on these projects, which I definitely understand. But what I love about this building is I think the city put a great deal of thought into how it could interface for North Ogden in many decades to come. So I stumbled upon this quote the other day from English writer and philosopher John Ruskin, who said, "When we build, let us think that we build forever. Let it not be for present use alone. Let it be such work as our descendants will thank us for." At the last Planning Commission meeting, one of the commissioners had made a comment about future proofing kind of projects and planning that really, it's not just about saying yay or nay to something, but to think, how will this serve the city in the future? And so I guess I just challenge all of us to keep future in mind at all times, like our children, their children, what should the city look like, feel like, and be like, because these decisions we're making will impact the future. So that's my thought for tonight.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, everyone will stand. Flags in the back. Oh, this one. All right, let us begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. We'll, because we don't have a quorum here tonight, we will skip item 2, and we'd like to excuse the commissioners who are not here today. For those who are here, any ex parte communications or conflicts of interest that anyone needs to disclose? No. All right, great. We'll move on. We only have legislative items tonight on our Planning Commission meeting. So we'll start out with item number 4, which is public items for any and comments or public comments for any items that are not on the agenda. If there's any member of the public here who has comments that aren't on the agenda, please step up to the mic and state your name and if you're a resident of which city and North Ogden or whatever, and I'll give you a minute.
If I have comments that are on the agenda, when do I do that?
You will have some time to speak through each of those when those comments become a topic of discussion.
Johnson, and just so tonight we actually have 2 work session items that aren't formal public hearings. The public hearing postings will be posted for April 3rd, where there will be formal public hearing on each of these items. So as staff, I would suggest that you address the comments now because the commission isn't obligated during those work session items to address or ask for public comments.
Okay, that's kind of what I thought, and I won't be here on the 3rd, so I can't do that and talk at the same time.
Great.
Brenda Ashdown, I live in North Ogden, and I would like to comment on the property that Mr. Hansen is here for. I live very close to that, and I remember the first time he brought this to the council, they turned down the idea of townhomes. And then he did the small homes, which those of us in the neighborhood really like the idea of that because across the street and where these are going to be built are full-size homes with full-size yards. And I believe the council decided that these small homes were a better transition than to do a townhome and then into the full-size homes. So that's why I'm here. I'd like to see them say small homes. I also would like to say that I think that fits in with Governor Cox's plan of having the smaller affordable homes. I know that starter homes are not a thing anymore, and not everybody starting out wants to live in a townhome or an apartment or a condo. So that's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else? Not, we'll move to item number 5. which is ZMA 2024-01, which is a work session on a legislative application to rezone property for land located at approximately 281 East Pleasant View Drive from Century Farm Zone to multifamily residential zone R3 or R4. The presenter will be Scott Hess, who is our Community and Economic Development Director. Scott?
Thank you. So we have the applicant, John Hanson. They have Century Farm Zone that did go through in 2021 through 22. It took about a year while they created that zone. It's sort of a public or a planned residential unit development zone, but it's not forced into our PRUD. It's just a small lot, 4,500 to 5,000 square foot average single family home. The site has, from what I understand from the applicant, we'll let them speak, but the site has a number of challenges, most of which relate to the amount of fall from Lowman View Drive down to Pleasant View Drive. And the fact that you've got 300 East, that's a major roadway that's a north-south that gets punched through this property. So it requires that north-south road to be facilitated. And that has its own challenges with engineering on grades and the amount of fill that's going to need to come into the project. So between those challenges and then general market conditions, the developer's inability to find a home builder to come in and build these homes on these small lots, they've retooled the project and they've come in with this application. Staff has seen it. That's both planning and engineering has seen several concepts up to this point. This concept here still does have a few tweaks that would need to happen in order to fit into the R3 or R4 zone. R3 would work from a density standpoint here. This is 60 acres, or sorry, 60 units. R4 would allow higher density on the lots, but I think that the constraints given the open space and the setbacks, this is pretty well maximizing what they think they can fit into the property. No decision tonight. The application was actually made less than 10 days ago. Staff didn't have time to post the formal public hearing notice. That's been posted. It will go up on the Utah Public Meeting Notice website tomorrow, and the public hearing notices for this one will go out tomorrow as well. So expect on April 3rd, we hope we'll have a quorum with the Planning Commission and a more thorough discussion. But we just figure with these items like this, it's better to have more exposure, more opportunity for comment, for eyes on it. And we wanted to get the applicant in front of the Planning Commission for your comments, so that if they do have anything that they need to fix or change or amend between now and their public hearing on April 3rd, that's what we'd be looking at. So we're not looking at total site constraints. We're not looking at a subdivision. It's not a site plan application at this point. It really is just that legislative realm of a recommendation to City Council. I would suggest to the Planning Commission members, since we don't have a quorum tonight, you're welcome to, say whatever your thoughts are and feelings are on it, in support, in favor of, or not in favor of, but we won't be taking or asking for a formal vote tonight. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions, or we do have the applicant representative here tonight.
Do you guys have any questions for Scott before we let the applicant speak?
Not specifically.
Okay, we'll turn time over to the applicant.
Thank you for accommodating us tonight and
Could you
for,
say your name and
oh, yes, sorry.
residence?
Thank
or
you.
Where you, city that
Yes.
you live in?
Yes. So Mark
Street number,
Hansen.
date of birth.
Mark Hansen. I live in Far West, Utah, resident of Far West, and I work with John Hansen Real Estate. John is my father. And so he's asked me to come up here and present these ideas to you guys.
Great.
So thank you. And thank you for accommodating with hearing and everything else. He's excited. So can you hear me? Yeah, he's good. He wants one of these at his church, he said. So, yes, I appreciate the public's comments on that. And it was our intent 100% to move forward with the 34 residential lots that we had approved through North Ogden City. I was personally very excited about that, thinking it would be a good place for my kids that are now getting to the age that they need a place to live, and thinking that was a perfect spot for them. I was excited about the look, the feel of the product that we had in place, and we had it under contract 3 or 4 times with different builders. And with the market conditions and everything that took place, they were unable to make it work. We are not builders. We don't understand everything that goes along with building, but we have been educated on this project on the limitations it has. Some of the limitations that come, as mentioned, is the fall of the property. With the frontage of the lots that we had in place, the fall was too great in order for them to go in and build the homes they needed to in the tight quarters that they had. The other obstacle that we ran into with the fall is the retaining of the property along Loman View Drive and the slope of the road that we've been asked to put through there to help with the overall flow of the city. So having said all of that, the main thing that we have come across is the affordability and the cost of the construction for the single family homes. When we originally started this project, we were hoping that we could hit a market of about $400,000 to $450,000 for a single family home. Since the time it took to get approved, and with the change in the market, and everybody knows what's going on in the industry with interest rates and all that, those costs are now $550,000 to $600,000, which makes it very difficult. And so we're trying to hit the missing middle that is there with this market. It's come very common for townhomes to now be the starter homes for couples with everything that's going on. Just as we're looking at it, just as far as an affordability standpoint, if we were to go in and do single family homes that we're hoping at $530,000 with the current interest rates, the total payment for a homeowner would be roughly $3,900 a month, which is hard to swallow for anybody. That is with, the down payment that's required for an FHA or conventional loan, and everything goes there. If we're able to get this product approved, it will be a very nice product, but the purchase price will be closer to $400,000, which would put the payments closer to, yep, there's the single family with the breakdown. We work with the lender. Townhomes, it puts the payment closer to $3,000 a month under those terms that are posted up there. And although that is very expensive, it is substantially less than what it would be for a single family home. So looking at it, our goal has always been on this project to hit a market that's needed in the area, to hit a market that's more affordable for young couples or really anybody that's on more of a limited income. And that's the goal that we have now, is to produce a product that will allow that. The other interesting thing to consider while looking at this, the income that's required to qualify for a home at $3,800 a month would be a total household income of $117,000 annually, which is substantial. Although it still is expensive, if we go the townhome route and provide a product closer to that amount, that puts a total household income down towards $90,000 or $93,000. So still significant, but quite a bit substantially less than single family. The stigma that comes with townhomes in the past has been, I've heard it from other cities. Requires more police force, the quality of living that goes along there, and everything that comes with more affordable housing, or has been in the past. I believe that has disappeared with what's gone on with townhomes. It's now becoming something that people want to live in for longer periods of time, to raise a family in them. And we're trying to develop products that will allow that. And so they're comfortable, and not only financially, but quality of living as well. The thing I like about the concept that we have is, if you can go back, Scott or whoever, to the drawing, the conceptual plan. If you'll look at this concept, we've got to do a rear load product there, which the thing that's appealing about this, and Chad may be able to shed a little bit more light on it, rear loading, but with the slopes, if you're coming off Loman View Drive, it will be just a walk to the front porch. And so you won't see any garage on these homes. It'll all be architectural, beautiful, with a little front yard they can walk out on, and we'll have it dressed up really nice. And then with the slope there, we'll have to use the building as kind of a retaining for the slope, and then they'll come back in the rear and do a rear load, and that will actually go into a third level. So it'll look like a normal two-story from the road, but from the back, it will have that third level where they can pull in for the garage. That also allows for an extra space in the basement, so we can get these closer to 2,500 square foot townhomes. 3-4 bedrooms. You can have an office down there, anything that you desire there. So the rear load concept is a big deal for appeal, in my opinion. It takes away all the garage look and puts it more in the, in the hands of the architecture, and makes it I think it'll be a really beautiful product. As you drive through Davis County and some of these areas that are doing this, it feels like a neighborhood and a home, and something that people want to walk through and enjoy. And with the park that's going in, being a walkable area and everything that's going on, we feel that this would be a nice fit for the city. We understand that it does have some single families on opposite sides of the roads and that, but with the change in the market and everything that we're seeing, we feel this will really complement the neighborhood as well as provide an affordable housing. More affordable, I should say. Any questions or concerns for us on
I've got
that?
a couple questions. So you look at Loman View Drive, and you've got the 545 kind of along there.
Yep.
So I like what you described as far as those being the entrances with no garage. I've seen those. My brother-in-law actually lives in one. They're pretty high end
Yeah.
in Riverton, and that definitely is helpful. What is the elevation change between that and the 5 that's below there at the bottom, the 5 and the 2? How much slope? So how much
there's
higher is the 545 than the 52?
Oh, to the one just right next to it?
Mhm.
There's like from my understanding, there's a 13-foot drop there.
Yeah.
And so what we do on those is those would most likely, depending on the slope, step down to a typical 2-story.
Okay.
Still a rear load, but they wouldn't require the 3-story for the retaining. And again, this is the beginning stages of design.
Yeah.
So to know exactly.
My one comment on that is, this is a pretty visual place for North Ogden. Like when you roll into, coming up 2,700, if the ones off Loman View are super high and the other ones are low, it's going to look weird.
Yeah.
At the back of people's
No,
properties. And so I think that elevation needs to be taken into consideration.
Absolutely. And that's one thing we're excited about this is because we want for North Ogden, and John's at the end of towards the end of his career, he wants to leave something that he's proud of and kind of continue on his legacy and have a really nice product for North Ogden residents to enjoy. So that will all be taken into consideration when we design these.
That's great.
Especially because Loman View Drive, those ones on Pleasant View Drive, I'm sorry, those 5 at the bottom, those will be facing Pleasant View Drive with rear load garages as well. And so the visibility from both streets is going to look phenomenal.
Oh yeah, no, I can see what you're talking about. I think it's going to look very nice.
Yeah. And they're fun. They're fun communities.
I mean, I would just maybe add a comment. I've done lots of townhomes, and I would agree that the 2 types, I guess, right? Front load and rear load. Front load, was a front door next to a garage door, right?
Yeah.
And the rear load putting the cars behind. Those have always been things that I've pushed, my clients and developers to look at, right? To go for those front loads because it puts it more in scale with the sidewalks that are going to be there. It puts it more in scale. Even the buildings feel less daunting because
Right.
there's not garage doors. There's more room to push the building in and out and make some variants. I've worked in Syracuse City, and it was quite a process. They have quite a long design review to ensure that they look a certain way. It's a pretty stringent thing. Just a question I have, I mean, it's more of an assumption based on that, but these are being sold individually, or are they going to
That's
be
the-
rentals, or is there any control over that?
That's the plan. We'll have we'd have to create an HOA with some pretty strict CCNRs. We are mindful that when you start renting out a few of them, there's limitations on how many can be rented in order for people to qualify for FHA and VA loans. We want to appeal to that market. So once we sell them, we can't guarantee what the owners will necessarily do, but we will have some policies in place on that as the plan.
Okay, great. I see a dimension here, but I'm going to let you answer. On those front loads along Lowman View Drive, is there going to be a driveway long enough to park a vehicle? Or deep enough, I guess?
Okay, Lowman View Drive. It's the way we have it designed right now is a 15-foot sidewalk to the front door with street parking.
Okay.
And then the parking below will have 2-car garages that will come in and park in those alleys there.
And I'm just asking just because there are the people across the street, right? Just figuring out what's
Sure.
going on with guest parking. Do you know how many stalls of reserve parking there is? I think I see the one right in.
Yeah, we've
the
got
middle.
one. We're gonna put in a few more, again, just very beginning stages of the design and trying to also appeal to that park and keep as much of that beautified around there, the parking areas we can.
I think one thing that could be looked at just is a lot. I think this is a great idea. If you look at the south side of this development, I mean, I'm kind of a city slicker that came back to North Ogden. But if you look at the south side of the development, you're pretty dang close to Lee's. You're pretty dang close to what's going on there. And I think beyond affordability, you might get families that have 1 car,
Right.
not 2 cars, and we can go get our groceries. And then another comment I'm just going to make is if you just kind of cross your eyes and look at it, there is a lot of open space. And so my thoughts or recommendation to help with your case, I guess, would be for the April 3rd, if possible, give everyone an idea of what that open space, how it's going to be planned, particularly along Lowman View Drive. It might be worth your time to throw in some extra dollars for trees or a buffer or some sort of visual to add to the cuteness.
Yep.
But you mentioned the missing middle. Sorry, I'm going long here, but you mentioned the missing middle. There's a book called The Missing Middle. I don't know if you know that.
No, I didn't know that.
It's actually an urban theory. And I think it's a problem that is a challenge in all of our communities, especially in our drivable communities where you can't really walk anywhere or go anywhere. So the missing middle is kind of this gradient from urban to suburban, right? High-rise apartments, townhomes, walk-up apartments, and then the single family. So I guess I'm a proponent of the missing middle, and I agree with some of the rationale that, where are my kids going to live if I want them to live in North Ogden? I think if these are going for sale, that a lot of them are probably going to have mom and dad's money tied up in it. So I think it's a great idea. I'm taking the concept to the finished idea, is still part of the process. But I think just being cognizant of the people to the north, I don't think you're affecting anyone to the east, anyone really to the west. You're probably adding value to the land of the west. But that connection to the city center is also important. So anyway, that's my.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You brought up a really good point that I failed to mention is it's the idea of single family seems nice for space and everything, but when you get going single family on those small lots and they all put vinyl fence backyards, it really compartmentalizes the feel of the neighborhood and encloses it. So you feel almost more claustrophobic than you do putting townhomes with all the open space, no fencing around the individual yards. So that is one appeal to this project compared to the last one.
Yeah, the one, oh, go ahead, sorry.
I was just wondering, speaking of open space, there's the pond and the park down here in the little corner. Do we have any more details as to what you're envisioning that to look like? That could make things a little more palpable.
Yes, this is a phenomenal thing that the city has taken on.
Okay,
and-
because is that part of the city's concept there, or was that your?
Yes,
Okay.
that ties in with the city. That just shows the property that we actually owned or deeding to the city.
Okay.
But that will tie into the city park. And what we've been told by the city is they're going to use the pond grass and just make extend the detention pond to make it more of the park area as well. So they're going to utilize that space.
Okay, because I think it's important with, townhome developments that we think, okay, there's a lot of families living close together. Where do the kids play? Where do the
Yeah.
kids, right? Like, we need to have some space considered for them. So that's why I was curious.
100%. Yeah, and I agree. And we are very excited. We saw the drawing of the water feature that's going in there and what the city has done there with the vision they've had. We are really excited about that.
Questions that we-
I think it's a nice idea. I think, there are people that are going to be affected, and I would maybe focus on, I don't know. I think it can add amenities to the people that are living across the street as well. There might be, the connection through could help out. I mean, being able to go right through south through the development is going to improve some people's circulation, whether it's by foot or by vehicle
Yeah,
or by bike.
sidewalks and curb and gutter.
Right. I think a lot of the advantages of the residents of the subdivision could be sold as advantages to the areas around, but we'll see what the public comments say next time.
I'm sure they'll become, but I agree.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Question that I have for you, you guys aren't builders. You've presented some numbers, things like that, but you are real estate people and you have been in this market for a long, long time. Based on this location, do you feel like these properties could sell at a premium versus another similar property at a different location in North Ogden? Because I feel like they could, but I'm not
Yeah.
you.
Within reason. I mean,
Okay.
we're hitting the affordability, and it comes down to a little bit on more sellability than value.
Okay.
So this area may be more sellable than other areas because it's such a prime area. But as far as value, it'll come down to what people can afford. Are they going to pay 50
Sure.
grand more to be here? No.
Mhm.
But if there's two that are side by side, yeah, the sellability of this will be enhanced versus
Mhm.
somewhere out where I live.
And I guess where I'm going with that is, would this location merit some higher end features on the property? Because you see these across Utah and you see some in certain, areas where they're built to sell for this price point because that's the market. And I'm just wondering if this location could, compared to the other properties here in North Ogden where someone would have choices, would someone say, you know what, I actually would want to pay $20,000, $30,000 more for these types of features because of the aesthetic, because of the location next to Lee's, because of, some of the things. And this could be a missing middle piece where people move in there and they're like, no, I want to pull my Tesla in here
Right.
and I want to live here actually for a long time because this suits me. Or is it more transitional housing?
Yeah, no, our goal is to make it so people can stay there a long time and be affordable. And the upper end amenities that you're talking of, we feel will go into the architecture of the buildings
Okay, great.
and will make it feel like a nice community.
Okay.
So when we say affordable housing, yes, we want to hit a price point, but we also want to be proud of what we drive by and what we see. And we feel that it'll sell because of the location.
Yep.
But the architecture on these is going to be key.
Okay. That
And
makes
that's
sense.
our goal. Plus
Yeah.
architecture plus city park.
Yep.
Because that amenity is phenomenal. I don't know if you guys have seen the drawings with the water.
Yeah. Those little things are really
Yeah,
cool. My
and-
parents have one by their house
Oh,
in
do they?
Spanish Fork and yeah, they're awesome.
Yeah, we're really excited about that.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Since it's a working session,
Well, are we still asking questions of,
Oh,
in a
sorry.
work, or do we have him, at some point, do we discuss? amongst
she's
ourselves?
ready to.
Whatever.
I
you
guess
want.
mine's sort of mine's a question that will probably lead into our discussion. Again, I'm just anticipating the people to the north, right? If you're looking at the image we're seeing right now, I have it pulled up on my maps. If you zoom out, I mean, you're not gonna be able to do it, but if you go look at Google Maps or Apple Maps or whatever, and you zoom out, it is highly likely based on the road design that you have. So if I'm coming on Loman View Drive and I'm in those front load buildings I got to go clear south and then back north into my garage, right?
Hmm.
The odds are, so yeah, you see, if I'm along Loman View Drive,
With this specific design,
Yes.
yes.
facing Loman View Drive, and I'm coming home from work, I am not going up Washington Boulevard and over Loman and west on Loman View Drive.
Right.
I'm going up, I'm either coming from the freeway on 2700 north and up 300 east, or I'm coming up Washington Boulevard, Pleasant View Drive and up. I think that's an important
That's a good point.
argument.
Yeah.
That's a really good point.
Yeah,
And so our transportation map for our general plan requires 300 east, and it will connect ultimately from 3100 down to 2700. At 2700, we have an agreement with UDOT that that'll be a light. So as the development south of 2700 comes in and you develop that 15 plus net acres or so, that'll trigger the light at 300 east. So we know that that's going to change traffic flow. You know, we're attempting to balance traffic across more than one road. So you don't only have 400 East Lakeview being the traffic center of the city. So 300 will come up, it will connect to Loman View, and then there's a way to kind of fit that up through Loman View to the
Yeah.
next, on up the hill basically. And that's been in our general plan, at least since 2015 in our adopted transportation
Okay.
part of our general plan. The other thing with the design, and this is just from a meeting that I had with the engineer, is you could picture the road at a steady slope, but at Pleasant View Drive, that the balance of the land is actually relatively flat. So the reason for that loop road coming in and exiting at one location is that the ground is flat and the townhomes all stay basically flat, and then that road extends up next to them. So I wish I could, draw a diagram, and we may have some little bit of plan and profile. They're working on that for our engineer, but the kind of whole east side of this is almost sunk in the ground. And then as you're driving down Loman View right now and it drops off, these buildings operate as like a retaining wall. That's the way they're designed.
Yeah, and I think the grade of the property and the reasoning for that is actually contributing. As I'm looking at it right now on the northwest side, there's that 4-unit building. That's the only one I could argue that might go on Loman View Drive to get home. It doesn't make sense for anyone else. So I guess I'm saying that if you zoom out a little bit and show a probable path home and traffic impact,
it won't be on
probably
that.
not really affecting Loman View Drive that
Yeah.
much.
Loman View stays a quieter street because of the way this is.
You don't
set
have
up
any
with the middle of the
garages, it's
road.
front doors. You're still going to affect it with the scale of the buildings and things like that. But the way the ground is and the way the road is, it's a little bit, it would just be counterintuitive to come home
Yeah.
from work from the north side. And so I don't know if, I know the ground led you to that, but sometimes those are coinkydinks.
Right.
And so like I said, just zooming out, I just imagine myself coming home and imagine how much of an effect that would be with those many people living across the street from me on Loman View. Yes, it's more people, but is it more cars? It's not really. It's actually probably less cars than what you were proposing with the single family.
I think it definitely would be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So anyway, it's just,
No, I appreciate that.
it's just sometimes when
Wait.
when you zoom in, it's sometimes helpful to get a point across to zoom out again.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
that's all I'm
We're
saying.
so early, so we hadn't even thought about that. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I will say that we are sensitive to neighbors. I mean, I'm living in my house right now and have recently found out they're doing, not us, but a different parties putting an industrial park behind my house. And so I'm getting calls from that developer. What do you think? And I get it. It's not ideal for me and my wife to look out our backyard in an industrial park, but I understand how things work there, and they've made some, similar promises that we're doing that they're going to take care of us. And I think they will have a nice buffer between us and the park, and it'll be fewer neighbors and that type of thing. So we always try and look at the positive, what we can. But the reality is I live right off the freeway, and that's a draw for industrial. Here, the reality is it's kind of in downtown North Ogden and a convenient area for a lot of people. We're next to a commercial building right there, and then the Public Works area of the city right next to it. And so I do think it will flow and still be a nice transition.
Yeah, on the traffic flow, it seems like people will walk out their front doors to
Correct.
walk down Lomond View Drive
Yep.
versus driving on that. But it's hard. I mean, people, it was hay, and that's nice to look at.
Yeah.
It's nice kind of rolling into North Ogden. It's hard to have those adjustments. It is, but it's going to be developed. And so it's, what will it be?
Right.
It's just Loma View is I grew up cruising home on Loma View, right? It's a quiet road, but I mobbed down it, and then but down south below, I mean, there's quite a bit of traffic there already. It is an arterial, pretty good thoroughfare. And so I'm just saying, in terms of traffic, it seems like it works if you zoom out a little bit.
Yeah.
And show pathways home. Going to church, you're going north. right?
Sure.
Going to your friend's house or just going to the park, the park across the street. But I guess I'm just trying to make a point for everyone that it's a quiet road and it's probably going to stay pretty quiet.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. And I really do think, this last thing I'll say, unless you have another question, I really do think this will feel a lot more open and spacious than having homes 10 feet apart from each other with fenced in backyards all through the project. This will have a lot better overall open feel and less congestion.
Yeah. You mentioned the industrial park and the people calling you. Is that something that you plan on doing with the neighbors, is showing them the architectural design and things like that? Or what's your?
They're
what's your
calling
take?
me because I have friends out there.
Oh,
And
okay.
I don't have any friends in North Ogden, so I wouldn't know who to call.
Well, maybe the neighbors want to have a phone call from
They're
you.
welcome. They're
Yeah.
welcome to call me at any time.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
Great.
Yep.
Yeah,
And
that's helpful.
yeah, I don't know if you have my cell number, but they can call or text. I'd be happy to meet with them, show them the architecture. We'll do whatever we
Okay.
can to help comfort them on that.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Do you guys have anything else?
No more
Okay.
specific questions.
All right.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for your time. So do we open it up to the public now?
Since
it's
it's
a
a
work
work session,
session,
you're
so
welcome
no.
to, if you want to ask. for
I'd love
public
to open it
comments
up to
since
the
we-
public. I'd love to hear, we got some heads nodding out there with people who got things to say.
I do. I appreciate this. Like I said, I won't be here on April 3rd. Brenda Ashdown. I live in North Ogden. I don't understand the reasoning of the traffic. You're building twice as many homes as they were going to before. You're going to have at least twice as much traffic, twice as many cars. You talk about this being walkable. You're going to have, if when that main road of 300 goes through, there's no way this is walkable. And how am I going to have my kids go from the east side over to the west side to play in that park when you're going to have that main road there? That's not walkable. I'm sorry, it's just not. And the other thing I wanted to comment on, I am old, I am retired, and when I want to buy a smaller home, I don't want a townhome. I don't want to do the stairs. I want there to be a home somewhere where I can live in that home with 2 or 3 bedrooms and be able to have access to all of my stuff. I don't know how, I don't totally understand how you do public hearings. I know I should know at this point, but I don't. Will those neighbors across the street in that subdivision be notified specifically, not just the newspaper, but specifically of the public hearing so that they know that they have the capability to come and make comments at that
I
time?
believe what was mentioned is that tomorrow there will be a mailer going out and it will go to everyone's home.
Within how many?
Within 300 feet of the property, which on large lot, single family, it was about 25 letters total. So if you receive one, that it picks up the first, 3 or 4 properties on the south side of Pleasant View Drive there, and then it loops around and you pick up Chamberlain's, which is a whole big piece of that, and then a few along Lomond View. So It's fewer notices than you think. It's 300
But it's
feet.
not going to go to that whole
Won't go to
subdivision
the whole
that's across the
subdivision.
street.
No,
Okay.
if you receive one, I would share the information with your neighbors.
Okay, that was why I asked that question.
Yeah, those are specific state statutes about distance and things like that.
Yeah, I get
would
that.
follow.
That's fine. I just,
Yeah.
I just needed to know if I needed to say something. You know, I understand the concern about building and everybody wants to build townhomes and apartments right now, but there's going to come a point where people are going to want houses to live in. I mean, I've got at least 3 neighbors in that subdivision that moved from a townhome to a home as soon as they could so that they had some place for their kids to play that had some grass and a yard. And you know, this probably wouldn't make a whole lot of difference either way because you're going to have that main street going through. So either way, you've got that community or that neighborhood is going to be cut in half as far as making it walkable. And I know that's the goal. I know the city has tried to come up with different areas of walkability, but in our city right now, it's not working. Providence Point was supposed to be walkable. I know part of the problem there is that there are no stores that want to come in that make it walkable. Yeah, we do have a grocery store across the street, but people, they might run across the street and get some ice cream, but they're not going to walk across the street to do their grocery shopping and carry all their bags home because we are car riding people. And if you come across Pleasant View Drive to walk down into Lee's Grocery, there's not, me at my age, there's no way I'm walking down that hill to get to the grocery store unless you're going to do some kind of ramp steps, something. Those are just things that I thought as I went through. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. Any other, looks like we do.
Hi, I'm Meg Sanders. I'm a North Ogden resident. First of all, I do appreciate you building in North Ogden. Quite surprised to have me say that, but we do have a housing crisis. We do have a whole generation that needs a place to live. So of course, the developer is going to come and ask those questions. Can we build here? Can we do this? And you guys have to, of course, decide if it's appropriate for the community. So that being said, I have just a few questions. So my family lives off of Lowman View Drive right there. My uncle Jed Musgrave lives right there. And then my family all lived off of 150 West for many years. And but the beautiful development that you did, it really is lovely. My grandpa goes and walks it with his walker. It's lovely. It's single family homes. So here's a couple of questions I have. When Mr. Hansen initially came with that first development, he said that he would do some improvements to Lowman View. It's a beautiful street. I love to walk it. It's still very narrow. I mean, very narrow, and it's going to need a lot of work. That I don't know when you have someone who says they're going to develop the land, but it's also kind of hush hush rumored that Mr. Hansen is actually selling the land. And so that's why he wants it rezoned to be high density. I don't know if that's true.
It's for sale.
So
Okay.
we definitely need you to address everything to us. I'm so sorry, just not like, the
Oh,
rule is, yeah, you
sorry.
have to speak.
I
to
will
the
not look
planning
at you.
commission. Sorry,
Okay.
not to our
Okay.
fellow
Thank you,
guests.
Commissioner Green.
No,
That was
no
my job
problem.
to say that.
Okay.
No, no problem.
So I lost my train of thought now,
You're
though.
totally good. So
Where was
you're
I at?
telling us about potential
width.
cells
Oh,
and the road
okay.
narrowing.
So that happens, it goes to somebody else's hands. Everything's null and void unless, I mean, you get a developer agreement that's pretty solid, which we learned from Prominence Point. Developer agreements are constantly being amended and changed. You have to make sure that you've got that down hardcore, hard pack. So you can't really say what the architecture is going to be. You can't say what the roads are going to be, that kind of stuff. So that's an issue for me. I also have to ask you guys, it's a really hard job. Who are you here to advocate for? It's a balancing act for those homeowners like Jed, who, if we're going to cite the general plan and we're going to talk about the transportation plan, then we should also discuss what is planned for the building in that area. I served on the general steering committee and we talked about overlays for that area to kind of ease into that recognized commercial district. This does not do that when we immediately drop multi-stories where, I mean, these homeowners have said overlay, no overlay. there's no advocacy for the people that are over there. And so if we're going to cite the general plan and talk about the transportation plan, then we also have to talk about what's in there for building. Is the general plan have high density here, there, back from 2015? I thought that it had smaller lots
It's north
with
of-
larger homes. And then the overlay was discussed.
So John will pull it up and I can talk about that. So in the first time this went through in 2021, staff supported the rezone to multifamily and the planning commission supported the rezone to multifamily. And the city council overturned that. And that's their job, their legislative body. Planning commission in this instance is a recommending body to the council.
Mhm.
So this kind of mauve area, the only change that happened when we redid our general plan is we added the area of number 1 there. That's the Chamberlain property. But Jerry Shaw's property was in 2015 in the area called downtown
Mhm.
and has been slated for multifamily since at least 2015. Or it's one of the land uses that would fit in the downtown area since 2015. And it's called the downtown mixed use zone. We didn't make any amendments to that section of the map.
I can see
in
economic
2021.
development is fully on board for this. I can see that. The next thing I would ask about the building and having it transferred to whomever, we could have single family homes, which are most likely to be owner occupied versus apartments, which could be rentals. And that changes things as well. And also, if we want to continue to have North Ogden be the area that it has, we have to give people that a possibility to build equity into their homes. So they can be owners, homeowners in North Ogden and keep North Ogden the bedroom community that it is. I think that's all last thing I would ask, if it's going to be a commercial district or it's near the commercial district, why wouldn't we propose mixed use? Why wouldn't we go full on? And why would we take what could be prime commercial real estate in an area that we're designating as a downtown? Why wouldn't we just then change that to commercial? Why give it away to just be residential and not use that area and buff up that downtown? Those are just some of the questions.
Thank you for that. And also thank you for serving on the steering committee and your service there as well. So hold on just 1 second. What's our next, we've given the applicant some time. I know it's open forum.
It's a work session. I mean, this could literally be like a table discussion on this. So there's no decisions being made. It's just, it really was a chance for these types of discussions often take place over several months. I mean, the last time when they created the Century Farm Zone, it was almost a year that it took to create that zone between city council and the applicant. So for the planning commission to see this even twice is, I mean, it's just a chance for you to have a conversation.
Yeah,
It's-
no, I think
it's
that's
really,
great.
there's not a whole lot of formal like Robert's rules that go into something like this. So
Okay,
if you
great.
have questions of the applicant or, staff can talk.
Yeah,
about
I'm fine with the applicant coming back up and let's try to not go on too long here, but
Not long.
oh, good.
Thank you for this. I wanted to tell you folks, if that would have been single family, they're still 2-story. They're not single family patio homes that was there. They were small frontages, 40 feet, and they went up 20 feet, 28 feet. And this will be the same as a townhome, will have the same height.
Because in all fairness,
Is
because
what
I
they
asked
had.
her just to address us, I'll ask you the same, so you're welcome to tell us that information. We
okay.
just don't want a brawl breaking out in the audience.
Yeah, just for decorum and yeah.
So if you
The
would have-
single family would have been 2-story.
Yeah.
Same as a townhome.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's all.
And the one comment I will make is, we're an informal city. I do appreciate residents trying to talk to one another. And that's the sentiment that I got from each party that was talking to one another. And so that's great. But preventing brawls is a good thing.
Yeah,
Decorum's
no,
a
and
good
I'm just
thing.
kidding. It
mean-
just helps that with the microphone and recording as well. If we're
Yeah. Commissioner Green may not want to see the brawl. I actually would love to see the brawl.
spice
John
things up
probably
a
wouldn't want to see the brawl.
I'm
So-
just gonna ask a question for Scott I think this is an interesting topic. What is the height? Is there a height limit difference in the zoning code?
No,
And what is the height? Is it 25 feet?
It's 35 and that's in all single family and multifamily. So you
Okay.
can build a 35-foot tall single family home
To the ridge, right?
to the ridge.
Okay.
Yep. Yep.
So there's no extra height with the,
No,
the
finished floor
rezone.
elevation to the ridge. The Village at Providence Point is development agreement based zone, so that creates its own whole sandbox to play in, and they do have some additional height in Village at Providence Point. I think they're up to 47 feet, I think, to the ridge. On some of those, you'll have a flat top 4-story building that was approved back in there for the apartments.
Mhm.
But all of the townhomes, no, it's not true. The 3-story townhomes with the taller ridge are about 37 feet tall, and they have some areas that were limited in height, but 35 feet is our general housing height maximum.
But unless this had a development agreement, it would be
Getting-
whether it was single family homes or these townhomes, the height is the same.
Yeah, and state code really has restricted local jurisdictions' ability to control what a single family home looks like. We do still have some architectural controls on townhomes, multifamily apartments. But when it comes to a single family home, the state has stripped out most of cities' abilities to do anything. And that was caused in the vein of housing affordability. And developers came back and cried foul that high-end cities were requiring high-end finishes and that they couldn't build affordable units. So that's been pulled back.
Yeah, that's still possible with townhomes to do that.
Yeah, you can do some.
Okay.
And
It looks like we have someone online with
Yeah.
a question. I
Sorry,
don't know
I've
if
been-
you guys-
Oh, yeah.
Trying to wave my hand.
Yeah, that's
great.
you should have done this, Commissioner Green.
Oh, no.
So,
I have the computer like right here. so-
We have Chris Pulver online.
Hey, Chris Pulver, North Ogden. Just basically one thing that hasn't really been discussed, but I've seen in different areas is both single family and townhomes in the same location. So I don't know if that's something that has been thought about, or because you can have the single family on the outside and then, stuff in the middle. I don't know. That's just kind of hit me when we were talking about it, that why not have both? So just a thought. That's it.
Thank
Chris,
you.
I think that's a good comment. I'm an architect, so if anyone is interested, including you, Chris, to see a development that did that type of mix, if you know where the old RC Willie was out in Syracuse, there's a development that is halfway under construction, I guess, where there is a mixture of front load, rear load, and small lot, single family, 2-story homes. If anyone's kind of, along those lines. So
Great. Anything else, Mr. Pulver?
Oh,
I think he's-
he raised his hand.
Okay, great. All right.
good comment.
Yep.
It's a hard area. It's a transitional area for sure. It's hard when things change. From just a physical what's on the ground, this area speaks to being a positive for multifamily. It's walkable to an elementary school, a junior high school, all civic services, the only transit in the entire city, 2 grocery stores, all of our services areas. And so in many ways, it makes more sense to put density in your downtowns than it does a mile and a half south down Washington Boulevard at 1700, where you can't walk to anything and you have to cross Washington Boulevard to get literally anywhere. And we have kids crossing Washington Boulevard at 2650 North today. And we have flags there and an attempt to slow traffic. And so it's a known issue now. UDOT is responsive to that. You're going to have more kids just generally in the area, whether it's single family or multifamily. But it's difficult when it's transitional areas because it's areas of change.
Mhm.
It's difficult when anything moves from a hayfield to something else.
Sure.
I mean, that's the reality.
Exactly. And I mean, this is always so difficult because I 100% see where the homeowners and the residents in the area are coming from. At the same time, when I look at this property and where it's situated, it's really difficult for me to imagine it being single family homes because it is right next to Lee's. It's right next to this commercial district. And it just doesn't tend to be where people are looking when they're buying single family homes. But this seems like something that could help families get established and hopefully for multiple years. I don't think it needs to be, obviously that transitional, and that's not what we want. But in terms of the general plan, in terms of this parcel of property, I don't know what else would make more sense, I guess, would be my thought. I don't know what you two are.
I think
feeling or
that if,
thinking.
if the architectural and the developers talked about this, if the architectural finishes are to a level where someone has like pride of ownership and they're like, hey, I want to live here. You know, and I've referenced the one that my brother-in-law lives in, and he's a high-end guy. You know, he's high maintenance. So is his wife. They have these little picket fences in front. It's rear load. And, you know, we were there the other night and it was nighttime and we were driving by and you can see inside of these buildings and every one of them they got $10,000 couches in them, every single one of them. And that's, you know, it is something that I think is hard to imagine, but it is something that's becoming a reality. He also owns a hay farm in Star Valley, you know, 40 acres where they're going to build a house, but they're still going to keep this place and live in it because they want to live in the city and then go to Star Valley. And so I think that times are changing, but it's hard. It's hard when it changes from a hayfield. You know, it's hard for me.
And that is a good point about the future of housing. It's highly likely that something like this is the future of housing. You know, when we think about land use, population growth, costs, etc. So, I mean, it is interesting, like your brother's making that choice, but I think we're finding more young people making those choices that they would rather be in a something that looks like this with less yard work, maintenance, home ownership responsibilities in terms of the acreage, right?
Yeah.
So it's just thinking of my opening comment about the future. I don't know that I think this could be what the future
Yeah.
looks like.
We have an acre and a half and he gets heart palpitations when he walks into our backyard just thinking of work, you know, and he runs a business. It's not like he's afraid of work. He just has a stroke when he thinks about what we have to do. He just doesn't like it.
I do love the concept though, that you were speaking of, Commissioner, in terms of like the rear entry for garages and some of those other things that would make this more of a high-end and long-term lasting family home. I think, you know, as this goes to city council and forward, those are things I think they would be wanting to see. I don't know if you have any other thoughts about what they could do to make sure this is the nicest thing we can possibly do for North Ogden in this downtown mixed use area.
I mean, I'm a big advocate in private property rights, and if you own land and it's allowed to be done, you know, who's to say what the best use of your own private property is, right? That's the highest and best use is sometimes determined by the landowner. I will just say that in my experience, the buffers of the front load or the rear load type townhomes where the garages do not face the street has done a better job of keeping the scale with the surrounding single family housing. There's something mundane about garage door, and you can do a lot more with front doors and front yards and things like that. But in terms of, you know, what is the best use, I will say that, you know, I think the best use is what the landowner has proposed for it. It could be an alfalfa field forever if that's what they deemed to be their highest and best use. It could be townhomes if that's what they think is going to create the most value for them. So I'm just trying to find the strengths and weaknesses of any proposal, you know, in terms of financial gain or profitability or highest and best use. I think that is a personal and private thing. So
My opinion is there's an element here. There's obviously multi-stakeholder things are tough, right? You have people who have shared interest, and there's a number of elements of common interest here. The people who live on Loman View Drive have large, beautiful properties. It is, you know, that and Fruitland Drive and Mountain Road are three of our historic roads. They're the only three left. There used to be more, but they're the only three left where those of us who grew up in North Ogden, when you roll down those roads, you feel a sense of nostalgia. And so one thing that I would encourage is discussion between the people who live on that historic road and have taken properties and made them beautiful, between that and the developer. And the person who owned the land before, I think he would want that. That was a century farm. That's something that he had a lot of pride in as a family. And I would encourage that. I think the architectural look along the road is going to be important for them. Whatever it ends up being, we're a recommending body. We're not the city council, I think that also there's a multi-stakeholder thing where when everyone drives into North Ogden and they will see this property, everyone who comes in, and it's visual. It's very, very visual. And I think because of the way the property slopes, there's a lot of opportunity to make it step and look very, very nice with just a few extra details. I think an example of a few extra details, because someone who oversaw it was local, Slato Pikins, personally oversaw the redoing of the library. And he and I were of an age where we went to the opening of it, and you look really closely at the grout lines that, he went in and he checked things every day. And whoever builds this, whoever develops it, whether it's sold or whatever, it's just nice when people have a stake in the game and they look at this and they take pride in what it is, because we're all, for the rest of our lives, we're going to look at that thing when we roll into North Ogden, every single one of us. And there's either going to be a sense of pride of, hey, we did this right, we measured twice and cut once, or we screwed it up. And we can point out properties in North Ogden where we look at them and we say, yeah, that one was rushed. We really screwed it up and it affected a lot of people. And, there's one that's not too far from this. You're kind of rolling down, Washington Boulevard, and you kind of look at the backs of some, and it's just like, really, did we really let that happen? And what I would encourage is to say, whatever this ends up being, let's make sure we don't let something happen that isn't beautiful and doesn't keep people in mind. And that being said, I'm with Commissioner Bailey. It's landowner, best use of what they think it is. It's their property. And if anybody has a different opinion, then they ought to buy the property and do what they think is best with it. So that's it. Anything else for the work session, commissioners, staff? Okay. We'll even give the public anything else. The public, we're spending a lot more time on this tonight because we can. So, and it's
We got
important.
one more of these, you realize.
I know we do. I know we do.
That one's
So,
less interesting, I hope.
yeah. So anyway, okay. All right. We'll move on. Thanks for everyone's comments tonight.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. All right. So we're going to move on to item number 6, zone text amendment 2024-04. This will also be a work session on a legislative application to consider water-wise landscaping amendment to the Title 11 Land Use Code. Presenter Scott Hess, our Community and Economic Development Director.
Thank you. So in our last city council meeting, Jonathan Perry, the Assistant General Manager of the Weber Basin Water Conservancy District, gave a presentation, and I'm not able to give this presentation, but I want to point out a specific slide and then we'll speak to that specific slide. John, it's down, if you scroll through to the city responsibilities, it is on page 35 of 52, and on my, it says landscape incentive programs. So as we've done more water-wise landscaping, as residents have done their Flip Their Strip program or attempted to apply for the Flip Their Strip program, the city hasn't been able to, we're not in the program area for Weber Basin Water Conservancy District. North Ogden's in a really unique situation of not having to purchase any culinary water from any culinary water providers. We get filtered mountain right out of the alluvial fan, straight into our tanks and cleaned and sent directly to the residents. So we have excellent water sources. They're clean, they're beautiful. The stump water is hailed as the very best water there is from many, many people. And because of that, we're not held to the same stipulations that some of the areas that have to purchase their culinary water from Weber Basin Water Conservancy District, of which Pineview is a subsidiary. So that's how we're involved is through Pineview and their secondary water. But what they've done is there are ways for the city to enter into agreements or enter into these programs to allow our residents to receive some financial incentives back to take out turf grass that's not usable and convert it into water-wise landscaping. And that's through our ordinances. So the ordinances are, this is now a new state code, but you further codify it as that cities cannot require turf grass in areas less than 8 feet. So that essentially says all park strips, other than maybe some of the historic park strips in areas like Salt Lake City. It says no more than 35% of front and side yard landscaping in new residential developments can be lawn. If the yards are small, once you get down to like 4,000 square foot lots or less, the lawns typically become undersized to a point that we wouldn't, you're not creating a big programmable area. And then in new commercial, industrial, institutional, and multifamily developments, those common areas cannot have lawn that exceeds 20% of the total area. So you're going to have lots of rock, lots of xeriscaping, lots of other types of water-wise landscaping in these areas. And we would codify this. And if we codify it through our ordinances, then our residents are able to basically participate in those programs, which is in here, I think it's $2.50 per square foot. The barrier to entry in doing the Flip Your Strip program and receiving that is you have to go to a class, you have to submit your landscape design to the Conservancy District. They come out, they inspect the work, they inspect it after it's done. Like it's a pretty harrowing effort to receive, a few $100s back on your park strip, but there are definitely people who do it, and it's an incentive to people to turn over kind of just historically what's the easy thing to do, and that's throw turf grass down because you mow it once a week and it's really easy to maintain versus what would be like a more thought out water-wise landscaping whole paradigm. So in this, I looked around at other ordinances that are available. Layton City adopted their ordinance in 2021. It appears to be essentially word for word from what Weber Basin Water Conservancy District requires. And I know that Layton City, I live in Kaysville and I was in Layton, that they participate in the Flip Your Strip program. So I know people who have done it. The one thing that is interesting to me here is that in Layton City's ordinance in 1916-038, they say it is highly recommended but not required that single-family residential properties install a water-wise landscape using the following elements, and then it has all of those requirements. So I've got to call into Weber Basin to say, is this a shall or a may in the ordinance? Because that's a definite difference. And then the question for, the Planning Commission, that the City Council asked staff to begin this process and bring this through back up to them as a potential code change, is this changes significantly our responsibility as staff in the building department for what we're managing. We can withhold certificate of occupancy on multifamily housing, commercial and industrial, institutional, that sort of thing, for landscaping that is not installed per the plan, or we can require them to provide a financial escrow or some other bond. They give us money that says, if we decide to never do this, the city can take that money and install the landscaping that was approved per the plan. Single family residential, again, through state code, basically telling cities to keep your hands off of it. We don't have any of that. I mean, we don't tell anybody right now what they should or shouldn't plant, other than total lot coverage of impervious surface, which is literally, we just calculate the area you're covering with anything that's cement or rooftops. And that's a stormwater provision that is still in like the fire, life, and safety for us. I mean, we don't want people to cover so much of every single family lot that you have stormwater runoffs and flooding people's basements. Like that's what that protection comes from. And we have some large lots in North Ogden, but we have some very large homes and people who want to have third and fourth and fifth driveways or extensive rear patios. I mean, we were looking at one today. The lot is 15,000 square feet, and depending on how you calculate their impervious, it's 58% of that. So it's a significant amount of impervious, and now we're having a discussion on the amount of water that sheds through pavers, essentially, like pavers versus true hardscape. But the question is how much water stuff sheds, basically. So my question is staff, and this is for Planning Commission, will be the same for the City Council. I think these are viable programs, and I think we need to go this direction to save water and conserve water. I think that it puts really a small staff. I mean, North Ogden is still like a little big city. We have a really small staff. I think we're able to do a lot with the staff that we have. But it adds one more task and one more enforcement that we're not currently doing. And will we have the ability to track and follow and make sure that single-family residential homes are putting in now restricted front lawns of less than 35% of the area, where, you know, a lot of people would tell you to leave me alone and let me do what I want with my private property rights. I want my front yard to look how I want it to look. And I think that's been the barrier back and forth between the conservancy districts and the private property rights. And then the city sort of being stuck in the middle as the, you know, pseudo police or code enforcement in how we do this.
Mhm.
So with that, I've provided essentially this draft ordinance from Layton City. We would codify it almost exactly like this. I think looking back to when the Flip Your Strips programs really started, they had a number of draft ordinances that cities would grab and then tweak little bits here and there to meet their city. But for the most part, this was boilerplate language from the conservancy districts, and it would look very similar to this. So when we have the public hearing, we will produce a draft ordinance for the city that will meet our numbering and everything in our Title 11 landscaping standards. But really interested in what the Planning Commission's thoughts on this are, and then ultimately it'll be a legislative item that's in the city's hands.
Who pays for the 250?
The Conservancy District
Okay,
does.
so they have a group of funds that they would, and do they pay that to the city and then they pay it directly to the homeowner?
Right. Yep.
And the homeowner applies to the Conservancy District. So the city doesn't have to go to the labor to broker that.
Not during the Flip Your Strip program, but if the Conservancy District were to show up to a newly constructed single-family home that doesn't meet the landscaping requirements per the code, meaning we didn't do our job on the front end, the Conservancy District would tell the city, tell them, go back to your city and you're ineligible essentially because we didn't follow our own,
Got it.
didn't follow the rules in how they put in their front yard landscaping. And right now, it's really, state code's been really interesting what they've peeled back from cities. So right now, like we can't withhold a certificate of occupancy on a single family home for really almost anything. I mean, they've got to have like a 3x3 patch of concrete on every egress door. That's one. They got to have egress handrails, but their front yard can be a complete dirt pit. Like we can't hold up somebody living in their home for not having landscaping. So I think the question becomes, what do we do after we've issued a certificate of occupancy to a homeowner who now lives there? Do we follow back up? Do we knock on their door 6 months later and say, hey, you put in too much grass. We measured it today. We went and walked on your front yard and you got to rip out 25% of the grass that you just put in. Like it's a precarious code enforcement situation. And we have 2 code enforcement officers that reside in our police department, and they do all code enforcement. That's all zoning and other city code enforcement. Police takes care of parking, and then the building department, their charge to the building official is really fire life safety. Is the building going to fall down and kill somebody? Is it a fire hazard? Is it unsafe to be in? But they're not the police for landscaping.
So let me get some clarity on, when I read this, it is incredibly detailed, but also one could argue incredibly restrictive for the homeowner, for good or bad. So is the concept here that you have to adopt it pretty much singularly, if I'm understanding correctly, because that's how the residents get this little kickback in cash?
Yep.
Okay, so one of my line of thinking is that I don't know that this is worth the kickback in cash. If our main goal is actually just water conservation, perhaps something a little more, just a more of a baby step or even a large step forward that maybe is less restrictive than this, which also would be less difficult for the city to do code enforcement on, would be one thought I have. Just as reading that, I'm like, wow, that's a lot of, the code enforcement burden seems really heavy.
And the question I have for the Conservancy District for Jonathan Perry, and I left this as a voicemail, is if we put the code in as a may, that these are strong recommendations and the resident follows them, and then the resident applies to Weber Basin, does that then meet the intent? It's not an obligation for us to follow up, but it basically gives them the outlined steps of, if you do these things, then you're eligible for the Rip Your Strip program. But
which that would be fantastic, because that allows a resident to do what they so desire, but also doesn't put burden on the city. So yeah, I'm with you.
But I
on
don't think that that's the way it goes, because this isn't for newly installed landscaping. So my understanding of the program in the past was that you require everyone you draw a line in the sand and say everyone from this date forward will comply with the new rules. And that allows the people who have had longstanding landscaping to get a financial incentive to turn theirs over.
Yeah.
So you're not paying, the Conservancy District isn't coming into a brand new home. I misspoke earlier. They're not coming into a new subdivision with new homes and giving you money to put your park strip in rock and
But they
plants.
want the new,
But they want
they
all
want the new
rules
ones to follow the rules.
Right.
And then they're saving money in the Conservancy District to help people.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I really think people in general around here, I've actually been kind of proud the last couple of years. I think everyone's kind of hunkered down on the water. I think it's been more positive than negative, not as much griping and stuff as I thought. My big concern is, again, I'm an architect. It is just getting daunting for homeowners to get a permit these days. You know, you used to be able to come in and get a permit and go build your house and deal with an inspector and get that certificate of occupancy. And there's always, you know, more and more and more requirements. So my question or comment is I think the money incentive, you know, you can go buy your plants, right? With it. You said that there's classes that are involved. Are those classes educating people on what plans to do? Are they helping them? Because I guess my biggest concern here is to present this as a single as a new build, right? I get that if you're existing, you're getting the money and whatnot. Are the classes available to everybody? Because if I'm coming in for a permit and you're asking me for a lot coverage ratio and then a landscape plan, a landscape plan costs money, right? It's adding. I get if you're getting $250 a foot, you can go pay a landscape designer to help you out and help track it. I'm just wondering what resources can be available to help make this less, to not have a cost burden, because like I said, it's getting pretty dang hard to get a building permit these days.
The Conservancy districts, this one in Jordan Valley Water Conservancy District, they both participate in, I bet Pineview does as well, but it's called Local Scapes. And that's probably the best resource that you can get is they're free classes. They're open to anybody. It's for anybody interested in looking at how you turn existing longstanding landscaping over into more water wise. And it talks about grasses and other plants and things that it might not look exactly like what you had, but it's going to consume, you know, far less water. So they're out there, the resources are there, but I completely agree with you that, you know, we're already seeing site plans that lack detail because it depends on how sophisticated your builder is. You know, some homes we have come in North Ogden are several $1 million and they've spent 5 figures on a landscaping plan. And you get a fully vetted, like amazing landscape plan with plant list and sprinkler locations and power everything, right? And then you have somebody who's trying to attain their first single family home and they probably haven't even thought about it. Like they were excited to pick out their carpet color. Cause I know I built a home one time and that's like, I didn't think about my front yard a whole lot, but I was pretty pumped to be able to pick out my countertops and paint color. And when it came time to put in my backyard, it was like, oh, this is a huge cost and burden. And what we did is a little concrete curbing and some grass, you know, years ago. And that's what we could afford to do at that time versus these fully vetted plans that, you know, they can be on the cheap side, hundreds of dollars, and on the expensive side up from that point, basically. So.
One just quick interesting note, and I could be reading this wrong, but it looks like the Layton City says the turf grass should not be allowed on slopes with a grade over 25%, but on the slides, and maybe the slides are inaccurate, it says 35%. That would be a somewhat important distinction just with North Ogden and our slopes.
Yeah.
So anyway, those differ, just a heads up on that.
That's interesting. See, and that might be an area where Layton City.
It's just talking about
changed that.
35%
Won't
plant,
change. Oh,
plant
Yeah,
coverage.
that's not the section. It's in the, yeah, so it's not what we're looking at right now, but.
And I guess to my previous point, how do you determine, you know, you're getting a survey to determine where your 25%, we're adding costs here that are, I mean, a survey's, I mean, at least from what I pay, it's $500 to $1,000 to get topography grades for a lot. Now I get that when, you're going into a new subdivision, those, the city could provide those grades individually to each lot because there is a grading plan to put in roads and whatnot. But again, those don't ever get followed. So,
If you can pull up the shall thing, it'll be great.
so, I mean, I'm a proponent of less work, less, use your lawn efficiently, I guess, you don't need a bunch of lawn that you're not going to use. Why not? So I like the incentive, but I'm wary of adding more burden to the city and to the single family residents personally.
I think that's valid. I think it's really valid because it does cost the city money to.
Even if we threw a stipulation in there, like a mixed clover and turf or something that was easier to enforce,
Mhm.
but I don't know how you're ever going to get people to. It's going to create an ordinance that's going to be it's just going to be cost prohibitive for someone to follow.
And cost prohibitive for the city to deal with.
Right,
know.
and this is very detailed. We're talking side yards, front yard, backyard, we're talking slope, we're talking types, we're talking clusters of 3 and planting.
Yeah.
That's where I think maybe if the city wants to take a stab for water conservation, maybe we find some really reasonable, and like you mentioned, something you can just look at and see it's that way or not. Could be at least that would be my recommendation to city council is to think that way.
Yeah, or if if there can be a public-private partnership, a landscape design firm or a landscape company, right, with the abilities to do that is able to come in and say, hey, $200, we'll give you a plan for you to follow. And if you use us, then it's not $200. It's free because we're installing, if there's any way to do something like that, I deal with this a lot and I deal with it. And I've seen cities where, I work a lot in Seattle too, and you can't touch a tree, right? You got to go mark every tree. And every time they go out, it's $1,200, $1,200. So I'm a big proponent of all the ideas, but unless we can figure out how to provide, I think if someone has a plan, they'll probably follow it.
That's a great
Yeah,
idea.
Why
think-
wouldn't you? You get to the end and quite frankly, you could probably save people a lot of money because everyone who's built a home closed on their house and went, oh, I got $10,000 in landscaping now. I could have thrown that on the loan. Whoops. You know what I mean? So I think there's advantages beyond water here. I just think that putting it on the taxpayers to enforce and the residents to go find their own information and prove that they're doing it correctly is costly. But if there can be, just as an example, like Weber County has lots of requirements for hazardous zones, things like that. But they do provide a list of people you can call, right? And some of them are just firms that do the drawings, but some of them are companies that will provide the drawing if you hire them. And so if we can look into something like that to not make this a financial burden, I don't think it's fair for me to pay more property taxes to make sure you're making sure that someone else didn't put enough turf in. I don't want to pay for that. I don't think anyone wants to pay for that.
And the hard flip side of that is, if we run out of water, then we all pay for it.
Right.
So like, where's the, where,
I mean, I'm going a little on intuition here. Like I said, I'm not the most social feller, but I do think in the last several years, I've noticed a holistic change in our area of water usage. And I think people have seen some of the benefits. So I think sometimes you just gotta trust that people are going to do the right thing. I think we're in a community that typically does. I just want to be wary and cognizant that if we add more, we just had a discussion on how expensive single family housing is getting. And yeah, I don't think we're adding landscaping costs, but time, permitting, holding up work, having to call the landscapers back, that it all turns into a bureaucracy, money pit. But I would just recommend looking into the public-private partnerships to maybe have those resources and then discuss with the Conservancy District, like what you said, the shall or the may, can they give us a percentage, right? Because I do, and my question to add on to this, if I move into a home and I leave it dirt, can the city do anything to force me to make it not dirt?
Yeah, we have a protective ground cover ordinance, so we don't specify right now in our landscaping what percentage of bushes and bush plantings and that sort of thing, or what we've had this question come up a lot as people have taken out the majority of their front yard landscaping, is how much can be rock and how much can be mulch. And if you read our protective ground cover ordinance, it says it's a planned landscape of rock and mulch and bark and trees and plants. And so it's this like, you know it when you know it sort of thing. I mean, we have a few homes that went in and it's just 100% rock. There's not one planted thing in it at all. And those are like, you might get a code enforcement knock on the door that says, hey, our Title 8 ordinance for protective ground cover says X. And so you need to make an effort, do something.
And the rationale behind that is protective ground cover keeps your water off your neighbor's property.
It is. And so it slows water down on your property, but that's the ordinance that code enforcement uses. It has like the weeds cannot exceed 6 inches, no deleterious materials, no junk collection. It's all held in our code. That's all part of code enforcement, basically.
I live in a subdivision and there are restrictive covenants for my yard that I have to follow that is more strict than the city of North Ogden. Moving forward with this, is there any way we can provide data on how many homes, how many years are left on the covenants, things like that, and what percentage of North Ogden is controlled by? Because again, if you go back to the public-private partnership, it could be something that you don't have to codify.
Yeah.
It could be something that, again, with the Conservancy District or whatever, that gets put on a subdivision.
John might be, go ahead.
I was gonna say the state passed a law last year that says an HOA cannot require grass.
In areas greater than 8 feet wide. So.
I know,
all
but
those-
we're talking the opposite in this term, right?
Oh, you're saying HOAs that are like forcing you to do water wise?
Forcing you to do non-water wise.
Yeah, most of them would say, the HOAs were saying, we don't really like rock park strips because we like the consistency of grass. So you have to do it. And the state came in and said, no, HOAs, you cannot force a homeowner to put grass in areas that are.
Yeah,
less
and
than 8
I'm
feet.
talking the opposite though. Bare minimum, if you just attacked the park strips, right?
Mhm.
Saves a lot.
I know we're saying we can't tell people that they have to put grass in the park strip.
Mhm.
Can you tell people that they have to do xeriscape and that they can't do grass in the park strip?
Yeah,
It's
I think so.
I think the state with that ordinance has set the precedent saying this is a police power that government has. And
I see.
so that in theory, although it's a theory that's always tested, is can the city go more restricted than what the state has done, or has the state set the bar? And it's a little weird in Utah because we're not a home rule state or a Hutchinson rule state. We're a blend of the two. And so the court might say yes or no on that.
Because
Park strips, right, might be a great place to start, is just a less extreme version of this. Is that what you're kind of indicating?
I think so. I mean, I'm trying to get the pressure off the city and the homeowner. So if we could do something that says no grass in the park strips, I think that can snowball, because you're already no grass in the park strips. And if you want it to look lovely, there's these free classes.
Yeah.
And then you're going to learn enough information to maybe pull that into the rest of the yard, and we cross our fingers.
That being said, I think the idea, this $250 per square foot, who knows how long those funds will be available? And I think we should go for it. Because like, I strongly believe we need to do this.
But you can't get the 250 without requiring new homes to go through a landscape grading plan,
That's
things
the
like that.
shall versus may question that we will
Yeah.
have an answer to before our.
Yeah, but I
Because
Because
think we
if it's may, I vote aye, right? But if it's shall, I don't think it's, I would start with the park strips if
Yeah.
it's shall. So anyway, I'm gonna
Yeah.
end my comments. It's getting late.
And I
so.
would have a little bit different opinion on that. I think we should push it as far as we can because who knows how long the 250 is going to be available. And, let's take like even a specific area in the city, that could gentrify around North Ogden Elementary and North Ogden Junior High. You've got some big lots that have got plenty of landscaping, but their landscaping looks like crap right now. The people are coming in and remodeling. And if they get a little kicker of 250 to take some of the grass out and do it, like you could see that neighborhood starting to really get some momentum because that can add up in a big,
Yeah, but to get the 250, you gotta tell a new young couple
totally.
to go spend $1,000 on a survey and another $1,000 on a site landscape and grading plan. And then we gotta ask the city.
Yep.
To come and make sure that they follow
And
it.
we got to thread the needle, I think, to make that as least onerous on the city as possible to step into this.
Yeah. So,
But I don't think we
if
should.
we could
sit
have
on
one
it.
without the other, I'd be for it. But if
Yeah.
it comes hand in hand, I don't think I can recommend it. So.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, go for it.
Mostly I just have some questions. Brenda Ashdown again, North Ogden. This is a voluntary program or this is a required program?
It seems to be based on the rules that it would be required for all new builds going forward, which would allow a voluntary program for existing homeowners to tap into some money that would be an incentive for them to change their landscaping.
What if I want, we were just talking about Hanson owns that property and you were all about do what the property owner wants. I want grass.
Sure.
And so where does that put me?
I
I'm
agree with
building a
you.
home. I'm gonna have 4 little kids. I'm doing a home because I want my own space. I want my kids to have a place to play. I wanted to have a garden, maybe a few flowers across the front, but I understand that there are state laws, but where does that fit in this? If I want to buy a new house, maybe I want grass.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying that, right now, we don't tell you as a single family homeowner what you're gonna do in your landscape.
Yep.
So the question is, should the city step in and tell you, no, you're only gonna be able to do 35% grass and this square footage and
Yeah.
not in these restricted areas? Because we aren't that heavy handed.
I had a budget meeting today and I said to them, I will offer my opinion and most of you won't like it. So I will offer my opinion. If we're going to be big on property owners and they want to do what they want to do, I think we got to say it in this same
agree.
point too. If I want grass, I want grass.
I mean, the
Thank you.
basis, yeah, thank you. And I agree with you. The big basis here is it would give an incentive if you wanted to remove your grass, but to get that incentive to give you some free money, if you wanted to remove some grass from your property, if you want, right? They're going to give you 250 a square foot. But for that program to be available, we have to encroach on the private property rights of a new development. And that's where I'm lost as well. That's where I can't.
Point. It's a really, really good point.
I'm really for, if you choose to do it, the funds are available, the classes are available. I just.
Right.
And it's not even the private property rights. It's also, should you have to pay more taxes to enforce the code? I don't think it's, I don't.
Great
I don't
point.
like it.
All great points.
Yeah, your perspective, I think, is clear on the issue. You're pro water conservation, but with some considerations. That's how I feel. And I mean, obviously the resident is speaking kind of to your comments about the private property. That doesn't necessarily represent the whole planning commission. Like my decision making on the first thing isn't so much, I mean, that's a piece, but it's also just this idea of the general plan, because, you know, there is that balance between cities coming in and making plans and making great communities versus property owner rights. That's always the tug of war. So I think on this, just, do we have any other final thoughts? Because I think basically we're all in agreement that we're concerned about this being universally applied.
Yeah.
But we love the options and maybe something that's less stringent. Is that a fair summary?
Yeah, and I would actually say that the comment from the public, you know, the way she put that actually changed my opinion. It's probably because I'm
It's about,
happy to,
this whole job's about consistency.
Yeah.
You know?
happy to argue with Chad.
Sure.
Maybe not at the public as much. I don't like the pitchforks. But no, the way you said that changed my opinion. I think if we're really restricting what people can build a house and do, that is a bit of a slippery slope that we need to be thoughtful about and maybe not move too fast on.
Yeah. And it just opens the door for another restriction. And I mean, there's plenty of studies out there. The cost of single family housing increases, a good chunk of it has been and can be attributed to new restrictions, new zoning, new building codes, all of those things. That's one of the major factors in increasing the cost of home building. So to add any more at this moment in time just doesn't make much sense. But
Yeah, the other thing I would add, and I know everyone's probably sick of me saying I'm adding things, everyone wants to leave, is it's likely that the state will continue to add water restrictions like they have, and we're going to be forced to do this eventually. So I don't think this is a topic that we can say, oh, let's ignore it and we'll never come back to it, because if we don't stay proactive in planning this as a commission and thinking about it, something will be forced upon us, and we ought to be as proactive as we can be in planning this so that we can choose and we can listen to the citizens of North Ogden and pick something that fits the community versus the state just, you know, us being passive in the state coming in and saying, this is how you got to do it because you guys haven't made a decision.
Yeah. I mean, Pine View's water district's coming to put meters on, so it's coming.
Yeah.
I think this one can be tabled for a minute because you're gonna be limited on the water
pretty quick
that you can use
Well,
anyway.
Yeah.
Like, you know, we mentioned earlier, things like the park strips just seem to be a pretty good public consensus that I don't think you're going to get as much pushback on, you know, taking a step like that. Like, let's all remove our park strips. Let's make that.
Yeah, it's a no-brainer.
potentially- Yeah. So I think finding a different route. And I like your comment about let's maybe come up with something else. This thing from Layton, this thing from the water basin. I don't know that that's it. So cool. Anything else from?
No, I think that's great. So, all right. Well, I guess we could move to public comments. We've had a lot of public comments. Are there any public online who want to make a comment, John?
You can see them on your screen.
Oh, how do I
So
do that?
If you look up at the top right, you can
You're right
see
here on
Chris
the right.
Pulver.
Okay.
So if a little yellow hand is up, that
Oh,
means
that's what that yellow
you would
hand
like
meant.
to make your
All
comment.
right, great.
And
Okay.
then just a clarification so that as you know, a lot of our veterans aren't here tonight, so we're learning the ropes. Is this public comment section only for things that were not already discussed on the agenda, or is it open house on this last one?
It's
Open
whatever.
house.
Okay,
whatever you want.
perfect, as we learn the rules here.
Yep. All right. Any remarks from planning commissioners?
Nope.
Okay. Report from Scott.
So just one, the state legislative session ended. We didn't have the major zoning reform bills come through and be passed that we were kind of concerned about, that we're talking about. Really things we were talking about tonight, the overturning city's ability to control local land use control, basically. I think a bill, I mean, there's several bills that were filed. There's still several bills that are coming in that way from housing affordability. So for cities to continue to stay proactive, North Ogden's extremely inclusive on zoning. I mean, we, in my opinion, have done our part as far as providing a really good mix of housing across the city. We're currently sitting with nearly 1,000 units of multifamily housing that's been entitled and hasn't come out of the ground between Village of Providence Point, Cooperstown, Patriot Point, another new development off of 1500 South that's near Spring Meadows. so the city has, we're not one of the communities that shut our door and said, no new density here. That's the problem children communities. But still, the state is looking for, how do you build tens of thousands of units of housing that's affordable for people to get into their first home? On that note, there's going to be a really good legislative review and update at the 2024 Spring APA Conference. That's May 8th through 10th, 2024 in Cedar City. And the city typically budgets for planning commission members to attend the conference if they'd like to. We didn't have very high attendance in our local conference. There's always a North and a South conference. So this is the Southern Utah Conference. I likely don't have enough budget to send everybody, but we do have a little bit of travel budget if anybody's available May 8th through 10th. And I understand that, you all have full-time jobs and other obligations, but we would have some travel budget available if you're interested in attending
I
that.
might be interested in that.
Yeah, keep me posted.
Okay.
We've got 11 days before the early registration ends. So that's the 31st. So if you can let me know next week sometime if you're available to go down,
Okay.
we'll look at that for you.
Okay, cool.
And that's all I have. Thank you. We were the guinea pigs in this, other than a couple of court, meetings. This is the first public hearing that's broadcast and everything or public meeting that's broadcast and everything that we've had. So thank you. Sorry, it's a little short without a quorum, but I appreciate you jumping in and chairing the meeting and bringing people out. It's good.
Well, I'm heading to the Hard of Hearing, so I'm looking forward to having one of those headsets,
Then just a question, in light of the fact that, again, our veterans were kind of missing tonight. Do we ever do a training just on, kind of Robert's Rules of Order and essentially how to conduct these meetings the most smooth and efficiently?
Yeah, we hold that one pretty regularly with our new city council members, and we always try to invite the planning commission to come. General rule of thumb for you, just as a volunteer committee, is that you sort of follow the city council in some of those. We don't often invite our elected officials to the planning commission meetings, but we will invite planning commission members to attend one extra meeting. And I mean, I've got 5 night meetings a month. So you just come and join us. One more. It's, really fun. But those would be on a Tuesday night. And I don't know if we have one scheduled with since we have our new members, but we
had one in February.
Yeah, we had like an Open Meetings Act and just a general training then. We can look at scheduling that. The planning
Okay.
commission needs to be trained. We could do a Robert's Rules training. for you.
Yeah, because that one in February was about, was it the exact same topic, right? Because is that the one I attended?
Right. And we call it Bob's Rules,
Oh,
right? It's
okay.
the less formal version of
So
Robert's Rules.
I'm just putting out there that I would love
Bobby.
an overview of that, because often, like, as we, tonight, it's like, okay, wait, how exactly do we do this? And then when I sat in on the city council meeting, when we were invited, I felt like I didn't maybe completely understand how they like to do things or proceed. So yeah, I would, even if something's written, like in a document, I don't know about you, but I always feel like when we need to have someone conduct these, it'd be nice just to know a little bit more.
I really hope you go, and I hope I never have to do this again. I will avoid the training.
Well, I'll train and then I'll do it if it's in the situation again. But okay, anyway, that was just my question.
I'd like the training on how to have a melee in the thing, because I just want to see it.
Okay.
All right.
yes, excellent. Thank you.
Okay, John, remarks.
Nothing new except that if you are bored, it would be good for you to watch this, just a little bit of this video and probably more of the discussion around the townhome request, because we were flipping back and forth from screens. And it'd be nice to see if you watching on YouTube, how you felt like the meeting went. And if there was areas that you felt like were clumsy and awkward, because the way it's set up is this computer basically runs all the screens, which means, and this computer runs all the camera and the Zoom stuff. And just, it'd be nice to get some feedback on what
Yeah.
you felt worked and didn't work,
Yeah.
so that we can tweak it as we move forward. So
Probably good to watch ourselves and see if we're doing weird things. And
most of the time you'll be a very small camera in the lower left-hand corner.
that would be
But like
good.
right now, you're full size. So
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
All right, unless there's anything else, we'll adjourn. And again, thank you for this beautiful facility. I think it will be used so well over the next number of years. I think it's a good, cost-effective facility. It'll be great.
and I did mention real quick, those doors that have a flashing red light, those are fire exits.
Oh.
If you hit that door, an alarm will sound, and 15 seconds later it will open.
Oh,
And then there's exit signs to get you out the building. Obviously, if it's safest, it's best to go this way, but planning commissioners, we anticipate giving you a badge that will get you in, out that door and out that door at the back, so that you can park on the south side of the building and the public will park on the north side of the building, sort of thing. But you won't be able to go through these doors, for example, because they go into secure court, and then there's some police areas that you won't have access to. But we hope to be able to, in theory, have you park in the gated area, so that on a dark night after a tense meeting, you can go safely to your car if
Not
you.
get pitchforked on our
Right,
way.
yeah.
Yeah.
So anyways, just one final thing.
Okay,
So,
great.
and then we do need a motion to adjourn.
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
I second that.
I third that.